Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is Malik. I'm 34, a senior biochemist at Zenithix Pharmaceuticals, one of the most powerful and prestigious names in the medical world. It's the kind of place that promises cutting-edge research, groundbreaking innovation, and career-defining moments. But it's also a place where ambition cuts deeper than any scalpel, and betrayal is just another tool for climbing the corporate ladder. For me, it was never about power. It was about purpose. I'd been developing a compound called Dermalix for nearly 18 months, an advanced topical solution for elderly patients suffering from scalp deterioration and chronic hair loss. To most, it would sound like just another vanity product. But not to me. Dermalix could restore scalp health, improve cellular regeneration, and even reduce long-term inflammation in aging skin. It wasn't just about hair, it was about dignity. Every test tube, every sleepless night, every algorithm, I poured my soul into it. This project wasn't just work. It was my life. But I wasn't blind. My boss, Dr. Vincent Hale, head of research and development, was a man known more for his polished charm than his scientific contribution. Silver hair, an expensive taste in everything from cufflinks to red wine, and a smirk that always seemed to know more than it should. Everyone respected him. I feared him. At first, I thought his sudden interest in my project was a good sign. He started dropping by my lab more often, asking detailed questions about the molecular breakdown of the A19 compound I was synthesizing. At the time, I took it as mentorship. Support, even. But deep down, I should have listened to my gut. 3 days before Zenithix's annual Innovation Summit, the largest event of the year, with investors, media, and pharmaceutical giants in attendance, everything fell apart. That night, I stayed late at the lab, finalizing my presentation slides. My laptop, secured with biometric access, sat next to me. It had every detail, every formula, every trial result, every simulation code I had written for Dermalix. Around 10:40 p.m., I packed up and headed to the parking lot. That's when it happened. A black SUV sped toward me, lights off until the last second. I barely turned before the door was yanked open, and I was pulled out of my car by masked men. One of them pressed a knee into my back while another shouted, "The bag. Where is it?" I panicked and pointed to the passenger seat. My laptop was inside. They grabbed it and ran. But not before one of them whispered into my ear, "Shut up if you want to live." That voice, it chilled me. Deep. Calculated. Familiar. I reported it to the police. Told the company. But strangely, the security cameras on our property had malfunctioned. No footage. No clues. Nothing. The next morning, my lab was broken into. My locked cabinet. Busted. The Dermalix samples. Gone. The computer I backed up to. Completely wiped. But the final blow came 2 days later, at the Innovation Summit. I sat near the back, still shaken, watching as Dr. Hale strutted to the stage in front of a sea of flashing cameras and VIPs. He smiled, clicked the remote, and said the words I'll never forget. "Today, I present to you a groundbreaking solution to one of the most overlooked conditions in elderly care, scalp deterioration. Our new formula, Dermalix." My heart stopped. Slide after slide, my slides, flashed across the screen. My research. My models. My words. And he smiled through it all. He stole everything. Claimed it as his own. And no one in that room knew. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. He had gutted me alive, in public, and left nothing behind. But what he didn't know, was that he made one fatal mistake. I recognized that voice. It was him. Vincent Hale was one of the masked men who stole my life's work. And if he thought I was going to stay quiet? He didn't know me at all. After the summit, I wandered the halls of Zenithix like a ghost. Colleagues patted me on the back, not out of pity, but because they didn't know. They thought I was just another R&D guy attending the event. They had no clue the formula behind Dermalix, the one Hale had just claimed as his magnum opus, came from my blood, sweat, and stolen notes. My name wasn't on the presentation. Not once. Not even a thank you. I went home that night and sat in the dark. 4 hours. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. My mind kept replaying the words, "Shut up if you want to live." I could still hear the way he said it, how calm, how cold. It wasn't some hired thug's voice. It was educated. Controlled. Like Hale. But how do you accuse the most respected man in your company of orchestrating an assault and theft without proof? You don't. I'd lost everything. No backup. No samples. No recordings. Even the security team's report about the lab break-in felt like it had been written by someone who'd already been bought off. I tried going to HR, but they said, "If you have evidence, we're happy to escalate it." Evidence. That word felt like a knife. I couldn't stop wondering if maybe this was my fault. Maybe I should have kept better backups. Maybe I should have hidden the samples better. Maybe I should have encrypted the folder differently. I started questioning my own intelligence, my own instincts. The self-doubt was suffocating. Meanwhile, Hale was riding high. He was all over the media. Dr. Vincent Hale unveils groundbreaking treatment for aging scalp health. I watched him on a morning news segment, casually talking about the 18-month journey of developing Dermalix. He even told the host how the idea came to him during a moment of inspiration at his vineyard in Napa. Napa. I had been in the lab that weekend, running back-to-back follicular regeneration trials. He was lying. Effortlessly. Publicly. And getting away with it. I tried confronting him privately. I knocked on his office door. He answered with his usual practiced smile. "Malik. What can I do for you?" I stepped inside. Shut the door. "You know exactly what you did." He didn't even flinch. "I'm not sure what you're referring to." "You stole my project. You broke into my lab. You had me attacked. You took everything." He stared at me for a long second, then stood, adjusting the cuffs of his dress shirt like my words were nothing more than dust on his sleeve. "Those are very serious accusations, Malik. Without proof, they're also very dangerous. You think I'm scared of you?" He stepped closer, his voice dropping to that same low, familiar tone. "You should be." I left his office shaking. Not from fear. From fury. I knew then that I couldn't fight this the normal way. HR wouldn't help. Legal wouldn't help. Hale had allies on every floor. Friends in the boardroom. He'd spent years building walls around himself. I had no way in. I stopped showing up at the lab after that. Just couldn't stand walking past the glass wall that now bore his name etched into a plaque. Instead, I stayed home and spiraled. For the first time in years, I thought about quitting science altogether. Maybe Hale was right. Maybe ideas only mattered if someone powerful was willing to protect them. But just as I was ready to give up, I got a phone call. It was from Marina Voss, a former colleague who had transferred to our European R&D branch last year. She'd watched the summit presentation online. Her voice was hesitant. "Malik, this is going to sound strange, but didn't you once mention a compound called Dermalix?" My chest tightened. "Yeah. I thought so. The presentation Hale gave, some of the data looked like your format. You had a habit of annotating mitochondrial sequence patterns with green arrows, remember?" I recognized it. She paused. "I saved the slides. If you want them." It was like someone had thrown me a life jacket in the middle of an ocean. Yes, I whispered. Send them. That night, she sent me the entire slide deck Hale had presented, screenshots from the internal live stream. And just like she said, there it was. My annotation style. My table formatting. Even the order of the clinical side notes mirrored exactly how I arranged my progress logs. It wasn't proof of theft. But it was a crack in Hale's perfect mask. I pulled out an old notebook from my desk drawer. It was filled with early scribbles and chemical reaction ideas, some of which matched the slides he had shown. I flipped to a page and saw a compound marker circled, A19X9. He'd shown that same marker on stage. The exact same typo I had made. No one else would have known to keep it. It hit me like lightning. He hadn't even edited my original files. He had used them as is. Which meant there might be other fingerprints he missed, something only I could identify. That's when the despair shifted into something else. Not hope. Not yet. But possibility. Maybe, just maybe. I hadn't lost everything. Not if I could prove he didn't just steal my idea. But that he never even understood it. And if that was true, I'd find a way to bury him with it. After Marina sent me the slides, I spent the next 48 hours doing nothing but dissecting them. Frame by frame. Line by line. Every data point, every chart, every diagram, was mine. But what caught my eye wasn't just the information, it was the mistakes. Not the kind of mistakes you'd expect from someone stealing a project. No. These were errors only someone unfamiliar with the actual formula could make. And Hale had made plenty of them. In one slide, he referenced the compound A19X9 as a stabilizing agent. But I knew it wasn't. In fact, during early tests, that compound was found to destabilize follicular cell walls unless balanced with a catalyst enzyme, C2R. He had left C2R out completely. In another slide, he projected efficacy percentages that were mathematically impossible without a second treatment phase, something I hadn't even started yet. Which meant he had likely fabricated the numbers to impress the board. But the most damning clue? Slide 17. A flowchart I had created during an all-nighter, mapping potential allergic reactions based on patient genetic markers. I had placed a fake identifier at the bottom corner of that file when I exported it months ago. A habit I developed to catch data theft. A small, non-functional watermark that read, REV Gen 2 MX57. It meant nothing. To anyone else, it was just a file name. But to me, it was proof. That file came from my personal laptop. Hale hadn't just stolen my project, he'd stolen my exact files. I felt my chest tighten, not with panic this time, but with fuel. It was no longer about reclaiming credit. It was about exposing him for what he was. I needed someone who could help me verify these slides against the original server logs, someone with access to deeper systems than I had. Enter, Troy Daniels. Troy was Zenithix's lead IT security engineer, and while he wasn't a friend, we had talked occasionally in the break room over energy drinks and coffee. He was quiet, a little sarcastic, but known for one thing, he hated being used. So I approached him with honesty. Troy, I think someone used my data without authorization. I need help checking the server access logs from last week. He looked at me for a long time, then said, "Let me guess, Hale." I blinked. "What?" "You're not the first person he's burned," Troy said quietly. "But you might be the last if you're smart about it. Give me 2 days." That was the first real sliver of hope I'd felt in weeks. In the meantime, I got to work reconstructing Dermalix entirely from memory. I started filling notebooks, sketching molecular reactions, rewriting test protocols, and listing potential refinements I had planned but hadn't yet executed. If I could present a new, improved version, and show the faults in Hale's copycat formula, I might stand a chance at reclaiming what was mine. 2 days later, Troy called. "Come to the server room. You'll want to see this." What he showed me changed everything. I traced access to your files. 3 days before the summit, someone used an admin override to log into your lab terminal remotely. Downloaded all folders under your directory. That alone is suspicious, but here's the kicker. He pointed to a timestamp. Accessed from Hale's executive account. My breath caught. "And one more thing," Troy added. "The backup logs you thought were deleted? I found fragments. Enough to recover versions of your chemical models, ones that matched the presentation exactly." He handed me a USB. "This is your kill switch." I couldn't believe it. For the first time, I had real, actionable proof. That night, I sat on my couch staring at the USB, feeling like I was holding a live grenade. I knew I couldn't just run to HR with this. Hale had allies. He'd spin it, bury it, call it a misunderstanding. I needed to go to someone above him. Way above him. That's when I made a bold decision. I booked a meeting with Isabella Carrington, Zenithix's CEO. The woman at the top. She wasn't someone you just emailed. But I knew something about her. She had a zero-tolerance policy for fraud. Her reputation was airtight. Ruthless, yes. But fair. When I requested the meeting, I attached one thing, a single image. Slide 17. With my fake watermark circled. 2 hours later, her assistant confirmed a 10-minute private meeting for Friday morning. And just like that, the game was on. I didn't sleep the night before the meeting with Isabella Carrington. My mind was racing, not with anxiety, but with the sheer gravity of what I was about to do. Going up against Hale wasn't just a career risk, it was a life-altering gamble. I'd seen what he did to others. Clara Mendoza, a brilliant researcher, vanished from the company years ago after conflicting reports and rumors spread like wildfire. No one ever heard from her again. But I wasn't Clara. And this time, Hale had gone too far. That Friday morning, I dressed in my best suit, not for vanity, but for armor. I needed to look composed. Unshaken. Even if my hands were clammy under my sleeves. I clutched the USB like a lifeline and walked into the elevator that would take me to the 26th floor, CEO territory. Isabella's assistant met me at the door. 10 minutes, she said, not unkindly. That's all she gives. I nodded. When the doors opened, I saw her. Isabella Carrington. Late 40s, sharp tailored jacket, no-nonsense eyes that missed nothing. She gestured to the seat across from her. "Mr. Malik, I assume you're not here to talk about vacation time." "No, ma'am." My voice was steady. "I'm here because something has gone very, very wrong." She raised an eyebrow. "Go on." I pulled out the USB. 3 days before the Innovation Summit, I was attacked outside the company lot. My laptop was stolen. The next morning, my lab was broken into. All my files, gone. What happened next was more than just coincidence. At the summit, Dr. Vincent Hale presented Dermalix. My project. Word for word. Slide for slide. She didn't interrupt. Just watched me carefully, letting me speak. I have no public proof. But this, I pointed to the USB, contains fragments recovered from the internal server. Access logs show an admin override from Hale's account. Data that can be matched, exactly, to the presentation he gave. She finally spoke. "If what you're saying is true, Mr. Malik, you realize the implications. Theft. Fraud. Deception at the executive level. That's not just corporate liability, that's criminal." "I'm aware." She nodded slowly. "And you're willing to testify if this escalates?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes. Then I will have my internal affairs team begin an audit today. Quietly. Before I left, I said one last thing. If you interview Dr. Hale, ask him about slide 17. Ask him what REV Gen 2 MX57 means. I guarantee he won't know. Her eyes narrowed just slightly. I knew I'd planted the right seed. The next 72 hours were a blur. Internal security began asking subtle questions. Hale started lurking near my lab again, but this time, his usual smugness was replaced by something tighter, twitchier. He'd gotten wind of something. I avoided him completely. Instead, I went deeper into planning my next move. If Isabella and the board truly wanted a full picture, I needed to go beyond just proving theft. I had to demonstrate that Hale wasn't just a fraud, he was dangerous. He was peddling a formula he didn't understand, one that had unresolved flaws I had discovered in clinical testing. So I began building the improved formula. I spent days recreating it from memory, adjusting the ratio of A19:9, refining the catalyst levels, and optimizing the stabilizing compounds. I ran small, low-scale tests using donated follicle samples through the secondary lab I'd secretly gained access to, thanks to a favor from Marina. And it worked. Not only was the formula functional again, it was safer. More effective. More stable. The final version of Dermalix was better than the one Hale had stolen. I documented everything. Even recorded a video journal explaining the full synthesis process, breaking down each compound and modification. If it came to a hearing, or a legal case, I wanted my voice to be heard. Unfiltered. Unscripted. But I didn't stop there. I compiled a report titled Operation Regrowth, Proof of Concept, Theft, and Risk Assessment. In it, I included the internal server logs Troy had recovered. The original design notes, matched to the presentation slides. A breakdown of Hale's critical formula errors. The revised, stable version with test results. And finally, a timeline of suspicious behavior, including the lab break-in, the missing security footage, and the night I was attacked. I left one copy on Isabella's assistant's desk. And another? I emailed directly to the board. All 12 members. Hale was no longer going to wiggle his way out of this. He wasn't just standing on stolen ground, he was sitting on a time bomb. 2 days later, I got the message I'd been waiting for. An emergency board meeting had been called. Internal Affairs was preparing to confront Hale. And I was invited to present everything. The room was booked. The trap was set. Hale had no idea the storm that was coming. The day of the emergency board meeting arrived like a thunderstorm on the horizon, slow, heavy, and inevitable. I walked into the executive conference room with my evidence-packed briefcase clutched in one hand and the weight of 18 months of betrayal sitting on my shoulders. The room was polished, cold, and sterile, high glass windows behind the board members, the city skyline glowing behind them like silent witnesses. There were 12 of them. Each expression carved in corporate stone. And at the head of the table sat Isabella Carrington, her fingers steepled, eyes sharp. Vincent Hale was already seated across from me, legs crossed, arms relaxed. He even had the nerve to smirk as I entered. "Malik," he said smoothly, "didn't expect to see you at this level of the building." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Isabella raised her hand. "Let's begin." She wasted no time. "We are here to investigate claims of intellectual property theft, data breach, and unethical conduct related to the Dermalix project. Mr. Hale, you'll have your chance to speak. But first, Mr. Malik, please present your case." The room fell silent. I stood, inserted the USB into the central console, and projected slide 17, the annotated flowchart with the fake watermark, REV Gen 2 MX57. "I created Dermalix," I began, voice steady. "This slide includes a code I embedded months ago to catch data theft. It's not referenced in any formula. It doesn't exist in scientific databases. Yet Dr. Hale presented it to the world, unaware of what it was. I clicked to the next slide, server logs from the internal audit. These logs show an admin override into my lab account from Dr. Hale's access credentials 3 days before the Innovation Summit. The same day my laptop was stolen and my lab ransacked. I walked the board through every detail, Troy's findings, the slide inconsistencies, the mismatched compound logic that would have triggered inflammation in test subjects, and the new formula I had personally corrected and tested. Hale tried to interrupt 3 times. Isabella shut him down each time with a raised palm. And when I played the video log I'd recorded, where I demonstrated the revised compound synthesis, something shifted in the room. I saw the board lean forward. I saw pens move. I saw eyes glance at one another. When I finished, Isabella turned to Hale. "Your response?" He stood with a polite smile that barely concealed the panic in his eyes. "These are very elaborate claims. But this is circumstantial. I've worked on Dermalix for years in parallel. Ideas often converge in science. Mr. Malik is clearly upset about being left off the presentation and is now trying to undermine me with reverse-engineered speculation." Isabella didn't blink. "Explain the watermark," she said. Hale paused. I don't remember seeing that. Perhaps it was something our design team missed. Or perhaps," she said, voice cold as frost, "you stole the files and never realized what you took." Another board member chimed in. "Dr. Hale, can you walk us through the purpose of a 19x9 in the formula?" He hesitated. It stimulates cell rejuvenation." "Incorrect," I said calmly. "It destabilizes follicular walls unless balanced with C2R. More silence. And then, boom. Isabella looked at the head of internal affairs, seated near her. He opened a manila folder. "We have completed our data sweep. The forensic report confirms that Dr. Hale's admin credentials were used to access and download Malik's files. Additionally, security footage from the employee parking lot shows a black SUV registered to Hale's personal assistant idling near the lab entrance the night of the break-in." The room exploded in murmurs. Isabella stood slowly. "I find this evidence damning. Effective immediately, Dr. Vincent Hale is suspended pending termination and criminal investigation. Security will escort you out." 2 guards entered. Hale's face lost all color. He stood, knocking over his chair in the process. "You think you've won?" he hissed at me as they grabbed his arm. "You think this company is going to protect a nobody like you when they've protected me for 10 years? I stepped forward, calm and lethal. "I'm not a nobody. I'm the scientist who created Dermalix. You're just the thief who thought he could outsmart the formula." He tried to lunge. Security pinned him back. His voice cracked as they dragged him out. "I built this company's name. You're nothing. You're nothing." And then he was gone. Silence fell like dust. Isabella turned to me. "Malik. You'll be publicly credited as the inventor of Dermalix. We'll release a statement by end of day. And I'd like to offer you the position of lead innovator in the next clinical division." I nodded, emotion choking my throat for the first time in weeks. "Thank you. That's more than I hoped for." "No," she said, standing. "It's exactly what you earned." For a few days after Hale was removed, everything felt surreal. The press release went out with my name at the center. Dermalix, breakthrough discovery by Zenithix's Dr. Malik Hassan. Articles praised my integrity and resilience. Employees I barely knew started greeting me in the halls with nods of respect. The board even granted me access to a private research wing, something previously reserved for department heads. It felt like the ending of a movie. But I knew better. People like Hale don't go quietly. 3 days later, I found out I was right. An anonymous message appeared in my inbox. Subject line, "He's not done." The message read: "They're covering more than you think. Hale had help, someone higher up. You just cut the tail off a snake. The head is still in the building. Watch your back." My blood ran cold. I forwarded the email to Isabella's assistant, thinking maybe internal affairs could trace it. But that night, I started thinking about something Hale said as he was dragged out. "You think this company is going to protect a nobody like you when they've protected me for 10 years? It wasn't just arrogance. It was a warning." The next morning, Troy, my ally in IT, called me urgently. "Malik. We've got a bigger problem." "What do you mean?" "Someone tried to purge the remaining Dermalix server backups. All of them. It wasn't just sabotage, it was targeted. Someone high-level. C-level access only." I felt my stomach sink. "Do you know who?" "We traced it to an encrypted signature used by none other than Elliot Brandt." My throat tightened. Brandt was Zenithix's chief operating officer, a quiet, reserved executive who rarely spoke at meetings but always sat near Isabella, whispering counsel into her ear like a puppet master. He was the architect of policy, the man behind the systems Hale used. It made sense now. Hale wasn't working alone. He was the face, the shield. But the strategy, the manipulation, the silence around Clara Mendoza's disappearance years ago, it all had Brandt's fingerprints. Troy continued, "I pulled a backup from an off-grid mirror we set up during the security audit. It confirms Brandt tried to wipe the formula revisions. He's trying to rewrite history. Again." I slammed my fist on the desk. This wasn't over. I thought I'd won. I'd only exposed one layer of the rot. Now I had to go after the one pulling the strings. But this time, I couldn't just walk into a board meeting with a USB. This was Brandt. If I misstepped, he could bury me with one whispered word. So I made a new plan, one with teeth. I contacted Clara Mendoza. Yes, that Clara, the one Hale had allegedly forced out years ago. Through some old industry connections, I tracked her to a research institute in Montreal. She hadn't published in years. Her career had been practically erased. I sent her a message. Told her everything. Asked if what happened to me sounded familiar. 2 days later, she called. "Everything you just described," she said quietly, "is what they did to me. But worse. They didn't just steal my work. They accused me of falsifying data. Brandt orchestrated it. Hale delivered it. They discredited me and blacklisted me. I lost everything." Her voice cracked. "But if you're really exposing them, I'm in." With Clara's testimony, I now had a pattern. A history. Not just one theft, but a system designed to destroy real talent and protect insiders. I compiled a second dossier. The pattern of silence, internal sabotage and suppression at Zenithix. It documented Clara's ordeal and the internal memo she saved from back then, signed by Brandt. The purged Dermalix data logs traced to his credentials. The encrypted emails Troy had uncovered, including one where Brandt instructed Hale to prepare for full asset transfer. This wasn't just corporate misconduct now. This was criminal conspiracy. I didn't go to Isabella this time. I went straight to the board, bypassing her entirely. I scheduled a meeting with the Audit and Compliance Committee, an emergency protocol rarely used, but available to whistleblowers with substantial cause. When I walked into that room and placed the new dossier on the table, no one spoke for a full minute. Then one of the senior members, a sharp-eyed woman named Lillian Cheng, looked up and said, "Dr. Malik, if what's in here is true, Mr. Brandt is about to have a very bad week." 2 days later, Brandt was summoned to an emergency meeting. He didn't come out. Within the hour, his name was removed from Zenithix's executive page. The company released a vague statement about a leadership restructuring. But insiders knew the truth. Word spread fast. Clara called me the next morning. She had received an apology letter from the board and an offer to return as a consultant. "You did it," she said. "You exposed the whole machine." "No," I told her. "We did. After Brandt was removed, everything changed. Not just for me, but for the company, for Clara, and for every silenced voice that ever walked those cold, glossy halls with brilliance in their veins and fear in their hearts." Zenithics scrambled to contain the scandal. Media outlets caught wind of the shakeup. Headlines read: Top pharma exec fired amidst allegations of IP theft conspiracy. Scientist exposes systemic sabotage within billion-dollar corporation. I was no longer just the guy who developed Dermalix. I had become a symbol of resistance, of truth. Clara was reinstated quietly, not as an employee, but as an independent ethics advisor. I made sure of it. She'd never again be under someone else's thumb. Troy, the IT wizard who'd saved me more than once, was promoted to Director of Security Operations, with an open-door policy to whistleblowers. And me? I was officially promoted to Director of Biochemical Research. My name was etched into the company's registry of inventors, and Dermalix, fully corrected, refined, and trialed, was greenlit for FDA Phase 3 approval. Investors raved. The press circled like hawks. But none of that really mattered to me anymore. What mattered was that the truth had surfaced, and not just about the theft. About the culture of silence. About what happens when ambition eats ethics. A week after the dust settled, Isabella Carrington asked to meet me in her private office. She looked tired, worn down from the political firestorm, but grateful. "You did something brave, Malik," she said. "You shook this company to its foundation." "I didn't want to burn it down," I told her. "I just wanted to save what mattered. And that's why you'll help rebuild it." She offered me a seat at the next Strategic Council meeting, to help design policies that protected innovation, encouraged transparency, and punished internal sabotage. I accepted. But I also made one final request. "I want a formal fund established," I said, "in Clara Mendoza's name. For young scientists who faced retaliation or sabotage in the industry. Give them a second chance." She nodded. Done. The first time I stood on stage, this time as myself, and presented Dermalix to the world, the applause wasn't what shook me. It was the silence after. The moment of stillness when I realized. I hadn't just reclaimed my work. I'd reclaimed my name. Months later, I got an email from Hale. It was short. Pitiful. "You think this ends with me? The world doesn't reward purity, Malik. It punishes it." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Last I heard, Hale was being investigated by federal authorities for conspiracy and fraud. His assets were frozen. His reputation beyond repair. Clara's old legal case was reopened with new evidence. She may finally get public vindication for what he and Brandt did to her. As for Brandt, his silence was bought with a heavy NDA and a crushed career. But no one in the industry would touch him now. He was radioactive. And me? I still walk the same halls. But they feel different now. Because I know I earned every step. With sweat. With truth. And yes, with revenge. But not the petty kind. The kind that restores what someone tried to destroy. The kind that whispers to every underdog in every boardroom, "You are not powerless." In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.